Dear students, now I'm going to talk about concept of selecting subordinates during the individual command test. A lot of questions students ask me what kind of subordinates we should call. Well, of course, everybody would love to have a cooperative friend because that's exactly what happens. You would not like to catch hold of a character who comes and spoils your things or who tries to be over smart. You would never like it. So I'm sure you will select subordinates which are cooperative. You will select subordinates as per the task also. Suppose you have to do a heavy task, you will pick one person who's on the heavy side, whereas one you will take on the lighter side, because the point is that you need to complete the task. That's intelligent. There's no doubt about it. But certain times, why you selected the subordinate, they may ask you. So there you need to say that yes, the subordinate was friendly, cooperative, is capable, and this is the approach. Though we will go a little more detail so that you can understand the whole process and you can understand why we want to talk about this. See, selecting a subordinate during the individual command task is itself intelligence, because they want to find out how you rightly read people. If at a reasonable age, you are already 16 plus, if at a reasonable age you are not able to identify characters and you tend to get carried away by emotions, or you are too gullible, or you are too foolish, if I call that, it is going to be the same. Don't be too emotional, don't be too foolish, but be wise. If you have a task, you can study the task and thereafter call the candidate. There are some people who go for an exchange policy. I'll call you, you will call me. Now that's not fair. You can certainly let them call you, or you call them, and then you can tell them that let the other person call. Now, when you go for exchange policy, it's evident that you are not looking at the wisdom, you are looking for an exchange policy. Now, here I want to tell you something very important. The trick of the game is that if you have behaved very well during the 5 days, 6 days with all the people, you have been encouraging to them, you have been supporting them, you have been appreciating them, trust me, they're going to call you. And there is no hue and cry about a lot of people calling you. Yes, if nobody calls you, there is a problem. But if everyone calls you, also there is a problem. So it is better that some of them call you, and thereafter when you go, you should help them very rightly. Now, selecting subordinate is a wise task. If you pick some people who are over smart and they come and spoil your task, I think you did the mistake. You did not identify the right people. So do not do this. Don't get carried away. That's the entire thing. And keep your wisdom very clear. It's not about emotion, it's about activity. So while doing your work, be mature to understand that. So pick a right subordinate as per the task. And while they call you, why you called, you should have reasons. You should be very clear, because the officer may ask you. That is why we covered this concept. Hope you've understood. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Dear students, there is a concept of suggestion of improvement, process, location, or innovation in center. Now, why do they do that? They basically do it for two purposes. Number one, they want to see your sharpness in observing things. They look at the way you really identify how to make the system better. Wonderful. But again, they also look at your over smartness. Like if you are making if you are having error, some kind of irritating attitude, and you tend to pick out small mistakes, then they'll figure it out. Number one. Number 2 point. Number 3 point, they do this is basically to identify how well you have observed the whole atmosphere of the SSB center. Why they want to see that? Because that is a learning exercise for you. So this concept of asking you is also to check your adaptability. Check your sense of adjustment, also your sense of observation. Let me explain you a little more than this. See, the idea of improvement process is not because that your ideas would be totally immediately applied. No, it will not be done so. They're just going to pick up an idea. They're going to see your intelligence level. If you have really given a good idea, wonderful, it's going to be appreciated. But again, is that idea cost productive? Or is it too, unrealistic? Or something which is talking of idealism or talking of immaturity? Everything can be picked up from that idea. So while you give an idea of any kind of suggestion, it should be sensible, it should be practical, it should be cost productive, and it should be really multiplied in vision in terms of depth of thought. It should not be said for the sake of, blurting it out. Now, many of you will actually learn a lot of things in the cantonment area, because the cantonment area or the SSB center, part of the cantonment, is very well organized. Everything is made very systematic. And there also, if you have problems, unnecessary, I'm talking about it, maybe some prominent things you can suggest. And if they get after you, of course, there must be few things which you can say. But if you are again and again complaining of a small thing, that speaks that you lack adjustment. So that is the concept behind asking you. They may ask you certain process, certain kind of observations. That thing should be very humbly said. Remember, be polite in putting it across. Don't try to say in an attitude which speaks of critical nature, not of improving nature. See, improving means you understand others and you are giving the suggestion because they asked you. But if you go and keeping on blah 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 to the other people, you have a lack of human understanding. Humans do not want you to come and irritate the others. Is it clear? So this concept is just to open your mind to a little maturity. I'm sure the boys and girls will understand this. Particularly girls who are very, very meticulous. I appreciate that they tend to be very observant of things. But some of them go on that excess that they tend to be more complaining rather than improvising. So I would like that you be wise to identify, is it improvising or is it complaining? So if you correct that, I think you will do a wonderful thing. And think twice before giving the suggestion. Give good suggestion if they ask you. But in case you feel there is none, you can politely say no. Got the point? Hope you understood. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Now, I want to talk about this concept of exchange with the evaluating officer during your group testing. Now, this is beautiful. The group testing officer utilizes these exchanges not only to put you into stress, but also to utilize that small conversations to identify your aberrations in behavior, your oddness in behavior. There are many people who have this habit that while I'm talking, please don't disturb me, right? And now this attitude is very immature and impractical. One has to be ready for all the kind of stress and stamina coming in from every source. Remember, once you are there in the border, the firing will be coming from all directions. You'll have to keep you cool. Same thing applies here. You got to be cool. You got to understand that the evaluating officer is stressing you. So you got to be relaxed. So while they ask you any exchanges, be most polite, most respectful. I'm going to elaborate on this a little more so that you can understand. See, whenever any kind of exchanges takes place, when the GT officer, for that matter, says, come on, I'm giving you last 5 minutes. Hurry up, another last 5 minutes, Actually, the officer is trying to put you under duress, put you under stress. They want to trouble you. They want to look at your stamina, which is called mental stamina. They want to look, are you able to keep your cool? You should. Not that you have to smile with a very sweet smile. No. Don't be that pseudo-cultured. Don't have to look that artificial. You can be natural. But you got to be healthy. Right, sir? I'm hurrying up. But that doesn't mean that you panic. Right? You don't panic. If you panic, then what will happen? They will learn that you have very poor mental stamina. So don't do that. That's exactly what the evaluating officer is looking at. Now, in this group testing, they may see how you behave. Like, for example, in an obstacle task, you have not done it, but you are trying it again. There may also be an officer that officer will say, okay, leave this. Now, they will look at your quitting tendency, non-quitting tendency. They will keep playing with words. You got to be wise, good to be yourself, and thereafter do it. These sentences by the officer is purposeful. It is purposeful to look at your things, look at your integrity also. There are some time when you will be getting into argument. Don't get into arguments, please. He's a senior officer. He should have the respect. There are some people who believe they are intelligent. So if the person asks something, they tend to get into arguments. I know a lot of people. I'm taking you back to the 90 When I went for my SSB and I found my friend getting into argument, what happened? It was not appreciated. Why? Because see, arguing is a tendency where you are ignoring respect to the officer. Remember, everyone has a perspective. That perspective may not be what you appreciate or you agree with, but that perspective is a perspective. And if it is coming from the officer, it deserves the respect, because after all, he is senior enough. So, the people who do not get into arguments are those people who respect the senior. Yes, you may have some people who are very irritating and arguing with you unnecessarily, and over a period of time, you get bored and then you start arguing with them. Agreed. And we are not talking about perpetuation theory. We are talking about normal arguments. Do not get into it. Please have respect for the officer. The person is deliberately trying to identify your anomalies in behavior, your aberrations in behavior, your difficulties in behavior. So they are doing this. So please, while exchanges, be very courteous, be very respectful, be very watchful, and please be honest and true in your interaction. Thank you very much, Jane. Dear students, very funny question. A lot of students had asked me, how should we behave during the psychological test? Well, nothing much. You'll be writing on a piece of paper, right? But there'll be an officer walking around, or the psychological assessor who will be walking around. What are they there for? Why didn't they leave the hall at all? I mean, in total. Because they are looking at your behavior. Are you into a cheating format? Are you looking into other person? Are you turning the pages and doing something? Don't do that. You've come here to be an officer. Learn to be a trustworthy, trustful, and a very, very disciplined boy or a girl. If you tend to cheat at that point of time and you keep moving your head around, or you are looking blank in your writing and you're looking in the stars, I mean, of course, you want to see the star, but looking at the roof, that means you're lost. So that is the why they want to look at that behavior. Let me explain you more. See, this behavioral aspect is a beauty to see and identify the thought process running in your mind. So if you have a behavior which speaks that you are running a very bizarre kind of thought, a very odd kind of thought, that is very clear that you are generally a person who is very odd. Most of the people, they tend to also rush up. It's like, sometimes writing story. They suddenly see a story, oh my God, this was what I had written. And they start rushing. Don't do that. Why are you rushing? It's not a question paper. It's a psychological analysis. So when they tell you start writing, write. Write coolly, write naturally. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You don't have to cheat them. There is no competition going on. I've told you that. All you've got to do is give your best performance on the time given. If you try to cheat the officer, the evaluating officer, by turning pages, writing something, wrong. Okay, in the VAT, there are some time when you missed a word. Write down the word. Before the paper turns, complete the word. But do not turn the paper and then write the word, because that will again account to cheating. So please try to be very fine in your behavior, because they are checking your integrity. And small mistakes speak enormous about personality. People who are cheater, thieves, then are cheating even with 1 rupee. And when a person cheats with 1 rupee, 2 rupees, it is cheating of the highest order. Of course, the person will do it for major amount also. But of course, this also speaks. So if you see, small units can be picked up as a behavioral tendency. So you should stay away from this. Try to be confident. God will certainly bless you, but you got to be confident of yourself, and don't go for all these kind of odd behavior during your psychological test. Is it clear? Hope I understood. Thank you very much. Jane. Dear student, we'll be talking about concept of complaint. Now, this is something which I want to tell you. When you complain, you are actually unadaptable. We have 4 factors of OLQs. One is organization and planning, factor number 1. The second is social adaptability, factor number 2. Third, social effectiveness. And 4th is dynamic. So we are talking about social adaptability. If you have complaining tendency, what are you? You're very poor in social adaptability. There are many people who are genius, but they're very poor in social practice. So they're not selected. Why they're not selected? Because there is no leader who can run with a single sword. We don't want Don Quixote. We don't want people who are funny, who are going to fight their own fight with their single sword. We want an army. We want to create an organization. So if a person is not able to adapt and keeps complaining, keeps talking about other people that they're wrong, they're this, you have a problem. You have a psychological tendency where you're looking for some kind of perfect set which is never going to be there. Let me explain you this more in detail now so that you can understand what I really want to tell you. See, in your stories, also your tendency of complaining, your tendency of unsatisfaction, your tendency of not working for your hard work, not working hard to achieve it, rather than blaming on the others, is a psychological problem. It's abnormality. You are not looking at solutions. You are looking at problem. You are multiplying problem. So you're not going to solve anything in life. What you're going to do is you're going to just cry. That's not what we are looking at. We're looking at fighters. We want warriors. We want winners. And for this, it is very important that you stop complaining. Look for solutions. In your situations, in your SRTs, there are some people who look for complaints. And in the SRTs, there are many people who look for solutions. In your story also, there are some people who look for complaint. And there are some people who look for solutions. So the people who are looking for solutions are the people who are going to become great leaders. And the people who look at complaints, what are they going to do? They're going to crib, they're going to complain, they're going to be always being sarcastic, but they're going to do nothing. There are many people who are very lethargic, very lazy, very critical. I have seen a lot of people using telephone calls, talking to n number of people, just in the back disparaging each other. Disparaging means belittling each other, trying to think superior. It's so easy a phenomenon. You sit down with your two friends and start thinking that you can be a great prime minister. You can. You may go into a euphoria where you will think you're much better. But actually, the post of a prime minister is a very busy post, a very hard-working situation, a very difficult position to be in. But sitting down here, complaining, criticizing is one of the easiest things to do. So please get out of the psychological thought process of complaining. Look at the solutions. Look at the way you can solve. And believe me, this is going to make wonders on you. You all have got great energy and potential. I have seen wonders of a lot of students, and I think that applies to all. Boys and girls have done wonderful. Rather, being very honest, with due respect to all the mothers of tomorrow, the girls, they are very sincere. It's very appreciated. Similarly, there are certain boys also who are very sincere. There are some who tend to take it carelessly. They're careless. They should not. Because life is going to play with them later. So don't play with it now. So if you're just serious, if you don't have this complaining attitude, you want to get at it, you want to solve it, I think you are going to be a winner tomorrow. God bless you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.